Have you ever had one of those quiet moments where everything slows down just enough for a strange question to echo in your mind? Is this really my life? Not because something is terribly wrong, not because you're in crisis, but because deep down, something feels muted, like you're moving, breathing, working, talking, but not truly feeling the experience of being alive. You wake up in the morning not because you're excited, but because the alarm insists. You go through routines you've memorized so well that they require no thought. You respond to messages, attend meetings, complete tasks, scroll endlessly, eat mechanically, sleep distractedly, and then repeat. Days blur, weeks evaporate, years compress into a vague memory of being busy. And somewhere in between deadlines and responsibilities, life quietly slips into autopilot. This is the silent space between living and existing. Existing is biological. If your heart beats, lungs breathe, and mind processes, you exist. Living, however, is experiential. It is emotional, intentional, conscious. It is the difference between watching a sunset through your phone camera and actually standing still long enough to feel the fading warmth of the sun on your skin. One records the moment, the other becomes the moment. Many people don't notice when they cross the line from living to merely existing. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually, through postponed dreams, delayed happiness, suppressed curiosity, and the slow surrenders to comfort zones. You start saying things like, "I'll do it someday," or "once things settle down," or "maybe later." But later becomes a habit, and habits quietly shape entire lifetimes. Existing is heavily tied to survival mode. When life becomes a checklist of obligations, bills, work, expectations, social roles, your energy shifts from exploration to maintenance. You're no longer asking, "What excites me?" You're asking, "What needs to get done?" And while responsibility is necessary, when it becomes the only mode of operation, joy gets suffocated. Think about the last time you did something for the first time. Not for productivity, not for social media, not because you had to, but because you were curious. For many adults, that memory is disturbingly distant. Childhood was filled with firsts. First bicycle ride, first drawing, first attempt at cooking, first time chasing rain barefoot. Children live vividly because everything is discovery. Adults often exist mechanically because everything becomes repetition. But the tragedy isn't repetition itself, it's unconscious repetition. You can work a job and still be living. You can raise a family and still feel alive. You can follow routines and still experience wonder. The difference lies in presence. Living requires participation, not just attendance. It asks you to show up emotionally, not merely physically. There's also the comfort trap. Existing feels safe. Predictable schedules, familiar environments, controlled risks. Living, on the other hand, demands vulnerability. It asks you to try, fail, risk embarrassment, change direction, outgrow identities. Many people unconsciously choose existence because it protects them from discomfort. But safety has a hidden cost: numbness. When you avoid pain entirely, you also avoid intensity. And intensity is where aliveness lives. Love is intense. Passion is intense. Creativity is intense. Growth is intense. You cannot selectively numb fear without also numbing excitement. The same emotional circuitry powers both. Another subtle sign of existing is time perception. When you're living fully, time feels expansive. A single-day trip feels memorable. A deep conversation feels timeless. But when you're existing, months pass unnoticed. Routine compresses time because nothing stands out enough for memory to mark it. Ask yourself honestly, do your weeks feel memorable or recyclable? Modern life accelerates existence mode. Endless notifications, algorithmic scrolling, digital comparison. They keep your mind stimulated but not fulfilled. You consume experiences instead of creating them. You watch others live while postponing your own participation. Entertainment replaces engagement, and slowly you start mistaking distraction for living. Real living often looks quieter than people expect. It's not always skydiving or traveling the world. Sometimes it's deeply listening to someone without checking your phone. Sometimes it's pursuing a craft no one applauds yet. Sometimes it's walking alone without headphones, letting your thoughts breathe. Living is less about intensity of activity and more about depth of awareness. One of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is, if nothing changed for the next 5 years, would I be fulfilled or regretful? The answer reveals whether you're living intentionally or drifting passively. Drift is the default setting of existence. Intentionality is the engine of living. Intentional living means making choices aligned with your values rather than merely reacting to circumstances. It means designing your days instead of just surviving them. It means knowing what matters and courageously structuring your life around it. But here's the paradox. Many people wait for external permission to start living. They think they need more money, more time, more confidence, more clarity. Yet the people who feel most alive rarely start with abundance. They start with decision. Living begins the moment you decide that your experience of life matters, not just your output. Another dimension is emotional expression. Existing suppresses. Living expresses. When you're merely existing, you dilute your feelings to remain functional. You don't celebrate fully. You don't grieve fully. You stay emotionally neutral because neutrality is manageable, but neutrality is also colorless. Living means allowing yourself to feel deeply. Joy, sadness, or gratitude, even heartbreak. Because emotional depth is proof of engagement. A flat emotional life often signals protective withdrawal from experience. There's also the identity factor. Many people exist inside roles they've outgrown, careers they no longer love, social circles they no longer resonate with, routines that no longer inspire them. Yet they continue because change feels disruptive. But living requires periodic reinvention. Growth demands shedding old skins. The version of you that feels alive today may not be the same one 5 years from now, and that evolution is healthy, not chaotic. Fear is the biggest divider between living and existing. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of instability, fear of starting late. So people shrink their lives to avoid risk. They trade possibility for predictability. Yet when people reach the later chapters of life, their regrets rarely sound like, "I took too many chances." They sound like, "I wish I had tried." Because existence protects you from failure, but it also protects you from fulfillment. Living is not about abandoning responsibility. It's about infusing responsibility with meaning. It's bringing creativity into routine, presence into relationships, curiosity into work, adventure into ordinary days. It's choosing to taste your food instead of rushing meals, to watch the sky instead of always the screen, to say what you feel instead of always what's convenient. Small awakenings compound into a lived life. If you feel stuck in existence mode, the shift doesn't require dramatic upheaval. It begins with micro-choices, trying one new activity, reconnecting with one forgotten passion, saying yes to one meaningful opportunity, setting one boundary that protects your energy. Aliveness returns gradually, like circulation returning to a numb limb. And perhaps the most powerful shift is reclaiming authorship. Existing feels like being a side character in your own story, reacting, adjusting, accommodating. Living feels like stepping into the lead role, directing, choosing, shaping. You realize time isn't just passing, it's being spent. And how you spend it defines whether you merely occupied years or actually experienced them. One day, every person confronts a sobering awareness: life is finite. Not theoretically, but personally. And in that realization lies clarity. The question stops being, what's expected of me? And becomes, what would make this life meaningful to me? That question is the doorway from existence to living. If your days feel repetitive, your dreams postponed, your curiosity muted, this isn't a life sentence. It's a signal. Awareness itself is the awakening. The moment you question your mode of living, you've already stepped outside autopilot. From here, you get to choose differently. Choose present days over distraction. Choose growth over comfort. Choose expression over suppression. Choose intentional days over accidental years. Because life isn't measured by how long you existed, but by how deeply you lived within that time. And here's the truth. Most people realize late, but you can act on now. You don't need a new life to start living. You need a new relationship with the life you already have. So start small, but start consciously. Do one thing today that makes you feel awake. One thing that makes time slow down instead of disappear. One thing that reminds you that you're not just here to function, you're here to experience. Because the greatest tragedy isn't dying early. It's reaching the end and realizing you never truly lived. If this reflection stirred something inside you, don't ignore it. Use it. Let it guide your next decision, your next risk, your next change. And if you want more perspectives that challenge autopilot thinking and push you toward intentional living, stay connected, keep exploring, and keep choosing awareness over routine. Your life isn't waiting to begin. It's happening right now. The question is, are you inside it or just watching it pass?